This week on Capitol Report, we dive into the poll numbers on the neck-and-neck race in Connecticut's 5th Congressional District.
It is a snapshot in time and should not affect how hard we work.
Just one poll. Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science.
We're going to be scratching and clawing all the way to the end of Election Day.
I knew how this would be settled in the animal world.
Plus, Connecticut gets ready for its first foray into early voting as we approach 2 weeks until Election Day.
Early voting is all about having your say at the polls on your day.
Now you can make a decision. Do you want an apple or do you want an orange? That's democracy.
Plus, New Haven rolls out a plan to restrict student cell phone use in schools.
I didn't like it at all when it first came, but then now I realize it's for our benefit.
We want to make sure that we get this right.
Enough. Zach, hang up that phone now.
And some special recognition for our entire Capitol Report team.
And I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me.
Cue the band. Capitol Report, start now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dutch. We are so glad you're spending part of this Sunday morning alongside the award-winning panel, the great Danielle Wong, Mayor of Bloomfield, Connecticut.
Happy to be a part of the team.
Joe Emerson, it's Coach Joe, former Speaker of the House.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Hey, Liz Cornelius, Republican strategist. Dark Money Sleaze back.
Only to my friends.
And Johnny Mack is back.
Listen, John Rosen's going to get an Emmy for that one opening next
100%.
year.
Sweet. All right, guys, let's get into it. The long slide towards Election Day will hit the 2-week mark this Tuesday. Early voting starts tomorrow. Presidential race is looking like a dead heat here in Connecticut. The fight for the 5th Congressional District is looking much the same. Latest News 8 Emerson College polling and The Hill shows numbers that incumbent Jahana Hayes is leading Republican challenger George Logan by a narrow margin. Hayes with a 3 percentage point lead over Logan, which is within the margin of error. This should come as no shock, seeing when these two faced off 2 years ago, Hayes won by less than 1%. So what do the candidates think of the latest numbers? Watch this.
It doesn't change the work that we have to do. I always knew that this would be a close race. There are some areas of that poll that don't reflect some of the other data that we're getting. But again, it does not change our work. This is about mobilizing. This is about making sure that people turn out to vote, and nothing has changed.
But it just goes to show what we've been saying all along, right? Folks are ready for a change in the status quo. We've been focusing on those issues that are important to the folks in the district, right? Affordability issues, right? The cost of everything from groceries to gas has gone up.
Still a turnout election, right? You think the Democrats are enthused. Turns out the Republicans are enthused, too. That may make a difference.
I think the turnout's going to be great. We all know it's going to be a close race. Historically, the 5th District has been a very tough district. Yeah. Jahana has had that as a three-term incumbent. And so I think right now, with up to 2 weeks left to November 5th, it's really about the ground game. And that's exactly what the Congresswoman has continued to show out, right? Show up and show out. She's galvanized her ground game. She's on the doors, phone banking, canvassing, not only folks from the 5th, but volunteers from all over the state that are fired up to get going. She has the funds in the account to get through to November 5th. You're going to see more TV ads. You're going to see more volunteers. You're going to see the airwaves just kind of pummeled with the get out to vote for the Congresswoman.
Yeah, you know, we didn't even need this poll, which is a very good poll, by the way, when we saw the DCCC put in $500,000 into the Hayes campaign. It's the only race in the country where Biden won by 11 points that the Democrats are spending money on an incumbent Democrat congresswoman. That tells you they're very worried. You know, we love our crosstabs here, right, on the panel. We get them. So let's look at a couple of them. Among independent voters, George Logan is leading 49-45. That's a very good sign for him. If he gets to 6 or 7%, I think he can win. Among voters who view the economy as the most important issue, he leads 60-39. That's showing how this, inflation really is affecting the race all over the country this year. And the last thing is George is winning among every age cohort over 40. He needs to do a better job with younger kids, and Congresswoman needs to do a better job with older adults in her district. So I think that's very telling. The last thing, 5% are undecided. If you're undecided by mid to late October, the general rule is that those undecided voters break 2 to 1 for the challenger. If that holds, we're looking at probably a 50-49 race. Maybe in George Logan's favor, but it is going to come out to turnout. It's going to be that close.
So let's get into those crosstabs. What do the voters in the 5th District care about most? Isn't a shock? It's the economy, stupid. And the voters care about the economy, as Mac said, nearly 3-to-1 margin. Economy topping the list at 45%. Housing, second at 17%. Threats to democracy, 10%. And immigration, 8%. As for the direction our state is headed, it's a pretty even split. 53% say wrong direction. 47% say right direction. Liz, what do you say about this one?
The right direction,
right track,
wrong.
Wrong track, yeah.
Look, I think those are indicators of just people's general frustration. And I think as you get closer to an election, usually that's where people's emotions start to run high, right? They're getting all the advertisements and they're really starting to focus on how they're going to vote. I think it's still a positive for the state, but I think what we're seeing in those polls when it comes to policies, people are frustrated by cost. Housing is part of the conversation about the economy, right? So overall, I think what people are telling you, to your point, John, is this is really about inflation. This is about the economy, and people are frustrated with the fact that things are just too darn expensive.
Yeah, and I think that's what confuses me a little bit. You look at all the things that are happening at the national level. You had investment folks coming out yesterday saying that our economy is the envy of the world. You see interest rates coming down. You see the gross national product going up. All the indicators are we're on a right track, but you're right. The 53% still believe we're on the wrong track. In the state of Connecticut, we've done so much to really balance out our books that it's not going to the voters. So what's going on? Are we not delivering the message in a way the voters hear it?
And just quickly on that, just to play off of what you said, you know, people don't like to be talked down to.
Yeah.
And so when you're telling them that all of the indicators and the economists and the statistics are saying everything is good, and people are not feeling that at home, you're talking down to them. You're ignoring how they feel. You're ignoring what they're seeing and what they're experiencing in their real life. And that is why Democrats are having a problem in this election.
And that's why Trump is still close in Connecticut.
Correct.
Danielle, are you surprised that housing didn't rank higher among people in the poll?
I am absolutely surprised that housing didn't rank higher in the polls.
17%.
Because we have right here in the state of Connecticut, we know we have a housing crisis. We have an extremely housing crisis, and we have an influx of luxury homes heading over throughout the state. We have a lot of pre-construction development that's happening, but it's not happening fast enough. And so when you look at the 5th, you know, and the Logan and Jahana Hayes race, you were talking about what is the issue there? Why didn't it rank higher? Why are people not talking about that? Just this week, the Congresswoman broke ground with 80 units right here in Meriden. We need to talk about that more. We need more of that type of construction, and we need the state to get behind this, of course, in the next legislative session.
But the issue with housing is the cost, and I think that goes into the answer of the economy and affordability. So I think it's unfair in the poll to separate housing specifically, because if you're it really is part of the economy.
Yeah.
One and the same. Thanks, Joe. That's the better way to say it. But you know, the other issue with how people feel versus statistics, we have the same conversation around crime. No matter what the statistics show, people don't feel as safe as they once do. People don't feel as financially secure as they once do, because egg prices, milk prices, things that everyday families need are way out of whack. And they don't even see prices going down, even though the statistics say that inflation's going down.
Okay, so voters in the 5th District were also polled on the presidential race as well as the U.S. Senate race. Let's start with the Senate. Take a look. Remember, this is just a 5th District. Senator Chris Murphy has a 6-point lead in the 5th District. Mind you, statewide in the 2018 election, Murphy defeated Corey by nearly a 20-point margin. And when it comes to the presidential race, too close to call in the 5th District. Kamala Harris has only a 1-point lead over Donald Trump in 2020. Joe Biden won Connecticut by over a 20-point margin. Liz, Biden did well in the 5th District last year.
Yeah, this is a Biden plus 11 district. This was a Hillary plus 6, I think, in this congressional district.
But you count for all that.
Of course. You know, but where Matt Corey is right at about the statistical average for Republican in this district. When you look back at the gubernatorial and the U.S. Senate race from last cycle, that's about where this race ends up in the general from the last cycle. So, you know, I think what we're seeing is that there's a difference in the you know, just the general population of voters in the district in terms of where they are. You look at the 4th Congressional District, that's a D+13 district, right? So this is what, when you look at the partisan voting index, this is about a D+2 district. So what we're seeing in the poll is where the district is in terms of the voter tendencies.
Interesting note out of that district, though, and I'm not sure the Emerson poll caught some of these voters. We had a great influx from New York over to Connecticut during COVID time. A lot of them went up to that northwest corner. Were they included in that poll? Were they not? You know, my folks on the ground out there are telling me it's 10,000 plus voters that tend to lead Democratic that may or may not been including in that poll. And you're looking at like Senator Harding's district, to where I think he's doing a great job. He probably comes back, but it's a little closer than it should be. I think it does affect those races up there.
Yeah, there are two things about the Harris versus Trump in the 5th District. One, I think a lot of us, most people thought in a presidential year, that's going to benefit Congresswoman Hayes. More voters are going to come out. I think we're learning that actually it may be a benefit to George Logan, because those people who don't vote in off-year elections are now probably more Republican or Trump-leaning voters. That's, I think, a surprise that we didn't anticipate maybe a year or two ago. The other thing is, I think we're going to see, and if Donald Trump is elected president, I think we're going to come back to the fact that Vice President Harris never really had a chance to prove herself. And, you know, I go back to Congresswoman Hayes saying maybe she's being set up for failure. Maybe she was, because she didn't have her mettle tested in a primary like Al Gore did, like George Bush did. At the end of the day, if she loses, I think that's going to be the reason why.
All right, guys, up next on Cal Report, early voting in Connecticut starts tomorrow. What do you need to know? Is this a good idea? Is your ballot safe? We have all the answers when Cal Report comes back. Don't go away. All right, McKinney. So let's go, guys. Early voting starts tomorrow in Connecticut. For the first time, every single eligible and registered voter can cast their ballot in person in advance of Election Day. You can even do it on the weekends. Every city and town will at least have one designated location where you can cast your ballot. Connecticut is one of the last states in the nation to have early voting. Think about that. Watch this.
After you vote, instead of just putting your ballot into the tabulator machine, you'll put it inside an envelope and you'll seal it and sign it and place that in the secure receptacle. And none of those votes will be counted until Election Day.
During primary season, Republican leaders here in Connecticut argued that local governments didn't have the funds or resources to implement early voting. Danielle Wong, the mayor on the panel. Are you ready? Is Bloomfield ready? What do you hear from your other mayors around the state? And will they give you enough money to do this?
Yeah, so that's really the concern. Do we have it in the budget? We're going to have to fit the bill. It is what it is. We're going to have to kind of see how the next budget season locally shakes out. Our budget season is coming into February, March, right, for most municipalities. But we are ready. We are ready in Bloomfield, and states and cities and towns around the state are ready. We are having our early voting activities in our town hall. So a lot of that overhead is already built into the day-to-day operation. So that's a good thing. I do worry about communities that are not prepared and don't have the rooms. You know, how are they going to configure that? But, you know, mostly what I'm hearing from mayors is we worked it out. This is important. Access to democracy is at the forefront of how we operate in government.
McKinney, I noticed a UMass Amherst poll last week. 72% of Massachusetts voters favor making Election Day a state holiday. Any movement in Connecticut to do that? What would it cost? How would we do it?
Well, the governor could do it, but he would have to negotiate with the state employees union. If the legislature were to propose it as a bill, and Joe and I were talking about this, it would come with a huge fiscal note. So I don't see that really happening. I think I always thought it should be a federal holiday, but now that we have early voting, look, I'm an old cranky guy. I want to vote on election.
Really?
I want to vote on Election Day.
Right.
I love the the cold, crisp air, and all the people
stale
outside
donuts,
the polls.
bad coffee.
But the fact that people can vote early makes it less important, and if there's unexcused absentee ballot, makes it less important to have it as a state holiday. But it would be, you could do it, but it'd be difficult. You'd have to negotiate with the union.
Yeah, I like the idea of making it a state holiday. I do. It would come with a fiscal note because it would include the state employees and it would say municipal impact. But, you know, getting people out on the early voting is a way to do it, because I don't even know that the holiday would help the people we're trying to help. We're really talking about the service industry workers, the ones that are working around-the-clock jobs that get pulled for the double shift, nursing homes, hospitals, jails.
And they're still open on Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of the holidays, right?
So while I'm in favor of it to get more people to go out, I don't know that it will have the effect that we need. But the early voting is a viable option. You can just go to your town hall. It's absolutely secure. There's no ballot drop boxes. It goes right into the town clerk's hand, and she holds onto it and runs it through the machine on election night.
I appreciate when you make my point for me. It saves me some time. Look, I think the biggest issue I have in looking at this is we've been talking about this for a while. Why didn't we have new voting machines? That to me is a real issue, because our machines are so old, they can't find replacement parts, right? Yes, early voting is great and that's important, and we should be celebrating that and using that, but there are so many issues, to your point, Danielle, that we're going to have to tackle going into the next legislative session, and making sure that going forward our elections are secure and have the utmost integrity.
They'll just make the towns pay for them.
Exactly.
And the municipalities don't lose the money.
Legislative way.
Pass the buck away.
Up next on Capital Report, New Haven gets serious about keeping smartphones out of students' hands during school hours. Is it the right move for the district? We'll debate when we get back. Don't go away. Yep, not funding mandates. Yep. The tug-of-war over whether schools should restrict kids from having access to smartphones during school hours is an ongoing battle, and New Haven has made a decision on where it stands. They're in the process of implementing a district-wide policy that will have kids surrender their phones to a yonder pouch in an effort to keep them more engaged in their learning. School leaders say keeping the phones away improves learning, communication, socialization, even prevents bullying. And the kids, well, they're warming up to the idea. Watch this.
It's all about articulating and being very clear about saying and ensuring that the access is still there. But what we're saying is, let's protect the time. The children are supposed to be here so that they can truly, fully engage in their learning when they're with us.
It was a big change. There was a lot of outrage across the school, but I think it slowly and subtly went down as people understood how the yonder pouch was a really good thing for the school and not something that we should fight.
Guys, first of all, props to Governor Lamont, who basically used his bully pulpit on the State of the State address last year to basically bang the table on this and raise it to the level where we're now talking about it, and schools are actually doing it, Joe. But the implementation, these kids will still figure out a way. You would know better than most.
Yeah, they're crafty. Let me say that. So my school system has done it, and these stories aren't from my school system, but the kids do all talk about it. What they do now is they just bring an old phone in that's a little smashed up and maybe still signed into their Apple ID, so they do get text messages on, and they turn that over while their real cell phone's still in their pocket. You know, so I don't know how these boxes and the yonder pouches work. I would be more in favor of, you know, one of those cell phone kill switches to where it just shuts the school down. It's a dark area, and then when between periods they turn it on. I don't know that these pouches work with these kids. They're very creative. They're going to find a way around it, but it is the right policy, and the governor should be applauded for moving forward with it.
It is a great policy, and congratulations to the kid who was interviewed who said everybody was really against it at first, but then we kind of realized it's a good policy. So kids are going to adapt Some are going to find a way around the system, but we need to do this in 160
how about
school
Bloomfield?
systems we have.
Yeah, look, all the national studies around this issue say that there has districts that have implemented some type of phone, you know, sell away or
I'm sure your daughters are going to give them up, right?
They are not happy. I mean, kids are not happy with this. You have to phase it in. It's how you do it. Some schools in the private sector also do this too, right? When you walk in class, you put it in the pouch, and then you get it returned, or you get to take it class to class. And so I think it's a good thing when you have these cell phones that are not allowed to be used during the school day, you have a decrease in physical confrontations, the drama that social media brings, and you are more engaged from a social standpoint. So it's just really about...
Liz, I want the nuns taking these phones away from kids, right?
That's yes. In our school where my kids go, they're not allowed, right? Obviously, my kids are in a K-8 school, and they do take those phones, and then the kids get them back, you know, at the end of the day. I'm not sure how many of them have burner phones to use during the day, but ultimately, I'm going to say something that maybe is not popular. It's up to the parents. You've got to parent. You've got to tell your kids, no, you've got to take the phone. You have to make sure that they don't have two phones. This is up to parents.
Yeah.
And I am so supportive of what the governor is doing. I think that it is absolutely the right move. Show me a study that says kids having phones and social media when they're young is good for them. It is not. Parents have to be involved. Parents have to be part of this conversation and part of the discipline process and accountability.
Amen. Up next, sharing some good news about Cap Report on Cap Report. When we get back, don't go away.
And nuns, Tom.
And nuns.
And nuns.
And nuns.
I can't forget.
Before we go, a moment to pat ourselves on the back here at Capitol Report.
With an election coming up in 3 weeks.
Capitol Report was just named Best TV Show in Connecticut by the Connecticut Broadcasters Association. Senior producer apparel John Rosen, the guy in the booth accepting our award on our behalf. It's an award that the entire Capitol Report team is proud to have won, from our panel to our directors, our editors, floor crew, camera crew, everyone at News 8. It does take a village to put this broadcast together every week. I'm proud of them all. One thing I can tell you about this panel, you see every week, we are living proof, guys, that politics is something that, in fact, can bring us together and not tear us apart, making the award even sweeter. It comes on the same night that our former friend, he's still our friend, former News 8's chief political correspondent, Mark Davis, he was a Capitol Report guy, was inducted into the Connecticut Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Mark's career covering the Capitol and state politics for News 8, unprecedented. He was fair, unyielding, passionate about his work, a little pain in the ass at times, too. And we salute Mark on this well-deserved honor. Mark, congratulations, guys. What do you say about that, huh?
I think it's amazing, and being on the same time with Mark, and also the legend Dick Robinson was inducted too, so that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, congratulations to Mark. And
what a
thank
great
you.
guy, huh?
My very first interview in 1999 as a new state senator was with Mark.
Of course, it's all about you, John, right? Yeah.
Well, it's about us, Tom.
Right, there you go.
But I mean,
Thank you, Tom.
Love Mark Davis, yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, head
Thanks for the
coach.
panel.
Thank you,
Great.
All right, guys, for the panel,
can you make
the
it
award-winning
today?
panel. I'm Tom Tetchik. I'll see you next
Could
week.
you please make it today?
They're going to take away our award.
Like, this is the day. Oh, gosh.
I forgot to do this.